It's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
Top Hit Tuesday, everybody. You know, here on ZiFM Sport, that's what we call it, because we give you the top stories and, of course, the top hits out of the world of music in our power play, which is first up in terms of musical interludes, and then our play of the day, which comes midway before we dive into the world of football. All that and so much more to look forward to on this edition of ZiFM Sport. The team is here. Mike Madoda, Chris Midzi, Alois Bunjira at Gazaman14, if you like, Sean Tafirenyika, and me, Barry Manandi. What can you look forward to on this edition? Well, on the home front, Zimbabwe international youth footballers continue to break into the American college soccer scene after striker Beata Chako secured a 4-year university scholarship in the United States. But curiously, there was no African players in the UEFA Women's Champions League final. We'll be talking about that, women's football specifically, first up on the home front. In international sports news, we have our staple, the Formula One report, which is proudly brought to you by Zimoko, where Lewis Hamilton cruised to victory at the Belgian Grand Prix and then admitted it was so boring he would have sent himself to sleep.
Well, Formula One is not the only international sports news that we have. We'll take you around the world in 60, starting in Yorkshire in the United Kingdom, where Joe Root hit his second straight T20 half-century for Yorkshire on the same day he was left out of England's T20 squad to face Australia. In New York, that's in the United States of America, fourth seed Naomi Osaka overcame a scare to beat fellow Japanese player Misaki Doi in 3 sets and avoid a major shock in the US Open first round. And then we'll touch down in Florida, where Chris Paul scored a team-high 28 points and carried the Oklahoma City Thunder OKC to a 4-point victory over the Houston Rockets, forcing a decisive Game 7 in the Western Conference first round playoff series.
Of course, in the second half of the show, we bring you the beautiful game, and today we'll start off with focus on the bottom half of the table in the ABSA Premiership, where AmaZulu coach Ayanda Dlamini says there's an air of confidence among the players that they will survive relegation after the crucial win over Black Leopards at the weekend. In La Liga, according to sources, Barcelona believe the only way Lionel Messi can legally leave for free is if he commits to not playing football this upcoming season. In the Premier League, Johnny van der Beek has completed a medical in the Netherlands ahead of his £40 million move from Ajax to Manchester United. And in news from the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich, Robert Lewandowski says he deserved the Ballon d'Or this year, but that the coronavirus pandemic robbed him of it.
Yeah, the coronavirus pandemic has robbed us of so much. You see the synergy there, Robert? Robbing? All right, let's leave that alone. Let's go to the power play. Today, it's Black Motion featuring Misaki, called Marry Me.
The Warriors, the Chevrons, the Cheetahs, the Mighty Warriors, and the Sables. From the pool to the track to the field, we are Team Zimbabwe. The Home Front. Local sports news and analysis.
We are on social media. Quick reminder, at Mike Madoda, at Chris Midzi, at Gazaman14 for Alois, at Sean Tafirenyika, at Mark Pozzo, and I'm at Barry Manandi. Follow the station and the show on at ZiFM Sport and, of course, at ZiFM Stereo. Let's get into it. On the home front, we're talking women's football, and Zimbabwe youth international footballers continue to break into the American college soccer scene after striker Beata Chako joined former national teammate Vanessa Mateto by securing a 4-year university scholarship in the United States. A 19-year-old Zimbabwean women's under-20 footballer left the country recently for the city of Mount Vernon in Georgia after signing for Bruton Parker College. However, there has been little progression of Zimbabwean players breaking through into major international leagues, as there were no African players in the recently concluded UEFA Women's Champions League final, and indeed very few in the bubble that preceded that. And that final, of course, was on Sunday. In fact, there was only 2 African players, those 2 players being 20-year-old Barcelona striker Asisat Ashaola of Nigeria and Banyana defender Janine van Wyk, and she plays for Glasgow City. It's great news for Beata Chako, Chris, that she's broken into the college soccer scene. And I suppose it's a start, because the development of football is quite strong in the United States of America. But we would like to see that step up of more of our players. We just aren't seeing enough.
We're not seeing enough, and I think we can attribute a lot of it to, first of all, the fact that in your schooling system, football for girls, especially in Zimbabwe, is not necessarily as widespread as it should be. The same opportunities don't exist for girls and for boys, and that's something that needs to go through the education system, that football is played at a certain time of the year, and it's played it's almost regulated. The same way we have a sports calendar. For example, rugby is played in the wintertime, cricket is played in the summer, that sort of thing, where it's regulated and it goes through the entire school system. Competitive football for girls as well. And also just, I don't think our women's Premier League in Zimbabwe is as organized as it should be, which is another thing, because what that does is there's no representation, there's no ladder. And for a lot of girls then, is it worth the investment? For a parent, is it worth it for me to encourage my child to play this particular sport where I don't see distinct avenues for their progression? So it needs to be a very comprehensive effort, all the way from the Ministry of Education through to our sport. Our ZiFM needs to get very hands-on in terms of actually getting girls to play the sport.
Mike, Chris makes an important point that there's not enough of a proliferation of the women's game, because you look at Beata Chako, she is no mug when it comes to school, because in her A-levels, managing to get 12 points, and we understand that she should be studying criminal law. Now, that's not for mugs, but is a good football player as well. So in truth, had she been playing football continuously in the school system, apart from them playing in a club side as well, chances are we would have seen a greater or quicker progression, and would see a lot more players making this route into South African universities, for instance, and then going on and playing the game as well. So not enough of the game being played at the lower levels, is there?
Yeah, Barry, and we've got to start historically. Zimbabwe, when it comes to our sporting model, it's classically British. And so netball was always the sport from a historical point of view that girls played in primary school. They played hockey, they played tennis. Football was for boys. So we've got to then shift our mentality from that old British model, which is also the reason why even England itself, the United Kingdom, has had to play catch up to say the United States of America, Brazil, and other European countries who embraced football a lot earlier than they did. So that is where I think our challenges stem from. The fact that football has been classically a boys' sport in Zimbabwe. So we've got to change that. And that change has got to come, like Chris said, from the Ministry of Education. It's got to come from the Ministry of Sport, and it's also got to come from ZiFM. ZiFM have got to be the main institution that's pushing through getting more girls to play sport. They've got to work with the Ministry of Sport. They've got to work with the Ministry of Education to make sure that football, or soccer as we call it here in Zimbabwe, is played from a primary school level going on upwards, so that girls realize that, you know what, they've got the option of soccer from the age of 6 years. And once we get kids playing soccer from that age, it means that we're going to have a larger pool of players that's coming through at the ages of 13, 14, 15, 16, which then makes any investment into the professional setup in Zimbabwe justifiable? Because I am sure there are a lot of people right now that take a look at the numbers, just merely from a numbers perspective, and say that, you know what, the investment perhaps is not justifiable. There's no reason why we should be pumping in X amount of money into a sport that's probably played by hundreds as opposed to tens of thousands. So we've got to fix it at the very bottom, Barry. Get the numbers, and then we can start talking about the investment that's needed. And ZIFA has got to push this agenda. We have seen nations where certain sports were not even being played. Rugby was a sport that was not being played, sevens rugby especially. But what Russia did, as an example and case study, is that they got sevens rugby into the school curriculum, made it compulsory for kids to play sevens rugby, and now all of a sudden Russia can hold their own when it comes to sevens rugby. That's the approach that we've got to take. It's not short term, it's not medium term. This is the long game that we're playing. We're taking a look at about 10, 15, 20 years here, Barry.
Yeah, and but it's got to start now if we're looking at that taking that long-term view. And because there hasn't been investment, Alois, we've seen it's individuals that are then facilitating moves such as the one that Beata Chako, the former Glenview High 1 student, now joining, of course, Vanessa Mateko out at Bruton Parker University. Mateko, of course, born in Seke. And those moves facilitated by Miguel Lemming, the former Arcadian Young Warriors utility player, and Charles Mhlauri, the former gaffer at Caps United, and of course took over the national team. Those individuals are the ones who are facilitating those moves. But the challenge, Alois, is that we're not seeing any of our professional players who are playing in the Women's Premier Soccer League in Zimbabwe making the move and making the step up to go outside the country. The last one I can remember is Rutendo Makore.
Yeah, it's not easy for our professional players here in Zimbabwe to actually make that step up because, like we have already identified, it starts from the grassroots. So if we don't have them stepping up from the grassroots and developing well when they are still young, and by the time they are playing in the professional ranks, it looks like now they're just playing for fun because there is no development right from the grassroots. Like Mike said, you actually need kids to actually start playing at the grassroots so that they can actually be purified, like to be polished, so that by the time they're playing professional football, they're actually quite good players and they can actually develop and, they can be scouted. So we won't see that. So we are happy that these individuals are actually making room for our girls to actually go into universities in America. They can get polished there. Then they can actually come back to a country to play for our national team. But as it were right now, we don't have the facilities to actually develop our own girls to professional superstardom, to professional quality that we may want. This is why we are calling for the Minister of Sport, Minister of Education, Zimbabwe Football Association. Mike got it spot on. As long as we don't get together to actually start looking at sport as a big investment, looking at sport as something that we can actually give a career to our girls, we won't go anywhere. So as long as we take sport as a hobby in the country, we won't be able to develop girls that can actually go and compete out in the European Champions League or anywhere. But as we take the route with the girls going to college, we might just have a chance that we can have one or two that can actually compete at the highest level.
Barry, it has to be a strategy, and I feel as Zimbabwe we don't have a strategy. You're talking about the likes of Miguel Lemming, who have managed to get a couple of girls to go and play abroad, etc. But those are individuals, Barry, who are acting of their own volition. They are self-motivated. What we need is a national strategy, a broad strategy to say, okay, how do we develop the game? How do we develop women's football? And having developed women's football here in Zimbabwe, how do we refine our quality? We are seeing it in South Africa, where South Africa increasingly, Barry, is now at the stage where they've got now the numbers to justify any investment locally. So what are they doing now? They're now looking at refining the players at the top of the pyramid. What is the strategy they've got? They're trying to get as many of their girls to transition from playing in South Africa to playing in Europe, even if it means they're playing at the so-called bottom clubs in Europe. They know that the experience they're going to get from playing for those clubs will mean that they'll be at a different and at a better level to compete and dominate in Africa. And so, but that comes, Barry, its birth out of having a clear strategy, which we don't have in Zimbabwe.
And you look at the result, Chris, South Africa already have appeared at a World Cup and weren't embarrassed at that World Cup. And you look at their players, they continue to go into the top clubs in Europe, and some of them playing in the top 5 leagues.
Definitely. We've seen a number of players, especially going to play from South Africa, going to play in the Spanish league. You've got some players out in Italy. Refilwe Jane is playing for AC Milan at the moment. You've got Linda Mutlaku. She plays out in Sweden. Mbane. You've also got Ode Fulutidilu. I think that's her name. And she plays out in Finland. And she's actually, she was born Congolese. But what they did was they saw this is an incredibly good player. She grew up in South Africa. So they naturalized, she naturalized. And now she plays for Banyana. And she also plays out in Finland. So they're doing even beyond just taking a look at, South African players specifically. They're actually going out to get some really good players. And there's investments that are being made by big corporates in South Africa to keep the game going. You've got cup competitions for women's sport that they've invested in as well. So it's a very big effort. You've got awards, you've got a lot of motivation for girls and women to actually be involved in the sport.
And I think we've got as many as half a dozen of the young upcoming players in American universities. And we know, of course, that the American college and university setup is very competitive and is at a higher level than playing anywhere in Africa. So they're also trying to get their teens, their players who are of college and university age, those that can't make it into the professional setup in Europe, let's get them placed into American universities, because that's better than playing here in Africa.
Or playing in the lower leagues in Europe, because you look at University of Johannesburg forward Amanda Mtandi. She spent a 1-year deal with Spanish second division side Badajo. And you look at that deal, the fact that there's second division women's football already shows you how far we've fallen behind. So South Africa is a great case study that we can learn from. We need to start now is the important thing if we intend to make a dent only on the continent, but surely Zimbabweans, we are more ambitious than that, would like to make a dent on the international stage, but it starts now.
Hi, my name is Rudoni Shamba, Maitoria's super striker. You're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Let's give you a local sports news roundup, starting with golf, where Zimbabwean professional golfer Scott Vincent made the cut at the European Tour's ISPS Honda UK Championship at the weekend. The Harare-born player was part of the field, which teed off on Thursday at the iconic Belfry, Sutton Coldfield in England. He managed decent rounds of 67, 72, 74 and 73 for a total of 2 under par 286. His performance saw him pocketing £6,999 after finishing tied for 31, a tidy sum. In athletics news, the National Athletics Association of Zimbabwe Director of Coaching, Talent Identification and Development, Lisimati Pakamile, says more needs to be done if local athletes are to make it to such platforms like the Diamond League. The annual series usually runs from May to late August or September. Pakamile was quoted as saying, "We have not had athletes who have given us that level since the introduction of the Diamond League. And again, it's not all about qualifying for the Diamond League. It's about qualifying for major events, African championships, world championships, the Olympics, and get that podium performance so that you can compete with the best." We wrap it up with football news, where Warriors defender Teenage Hadebe appears destined for greatness after he was named in the Turkish Super League's Team of the Season. The honor comes at a time his management team have been dealing with growing interest from a number of suitors. The towering defender, who had an impressive debut season in Europe with Yeni Malatyaspor, yesterday reacted with excitement on his Twitter account after he made the season's best 11. His inclusion was even more impressive when one considers how his team terribly lost their way in the second half of the season and found themselves among the bottom 3 clubs on the table. And of course, if you didn't know, good news for fans of Teenage Hadebe. His team have been saved from the chop. They will no longer be relegated after the Turkish Super League decided that there would be no relegation as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hi, this is Mike Madoda, and you can catch me and the team for all the latest breaking news out of the world of sport, local as well as international, on your favorite station. My station, your station, ZiFM. We are Z-Team on ZiFM Sport.
Z. International Sports News Roundup, where the world comes out to play. From sunny Melbourne to the streets of Monaco, the deserts of Bahrain to the jungles of Brazil, get up to speed on the Formula One Report. The Formula One Report is proudly brought to you by Zimoco, the home of F1 brands Mercedes-Benz and Alfa Romeo in Zimbabwe. Zimoco, specialized service for special brands.
Time for the Formula One Report, brought to you by Zimoco. Now, congratulations, Lewis Hamilton, on winning the Belgian Grand Prix, and to Valtteri Bottas on P2. Team Mercedes are on absolute fire. Long may the team success continue. We hope you have all been following our Facebook and Instagram pages and seen the Zimoco Jerusalem Dance Challenge. It's something to behold. The team certainly had fun and was a great team building exercise. Check it out if you haven't yet seen it, as the team talked to the car. So now you must be wondering, how were we able to talk to the all-new Mercedes GLE? Well, this is all thanks to the state-of-the-art, completely new multimedia system, the MBUX technology, which now features in the all-new GLE, GLS, and GLB, and other newer models of the Mercedes-Benz range. The MBUX is most advanced multimedia system ever developed by Mercedes-Benz, or in fact, by any other car manufacturer. It is smart, simple, and sophisticated, and it is sure to make interacting with your Mercedes-Benz almost effortless. MBUX stands for Mercedes-Benz User Experience and signifies how much development time was dedicated to understanding how users best interact with their vehicles.
Is designed around a touch interface, very similar to a smartphone or tablet, which is why many of the functions are touch-based, like the brand new touch display screen, the new center console touchpad with handwriting recognition, and the new touch button integrated into the steering wheel. It ensures that the functions you interact with most are only a few swipes away. However, the most amazing interaction system on the new MBUX technology features the latest generation voice control system, which is what you saw in use on our Jerusalem Dance Challenge video.
With this new system, there is no need to remember specific commands. With a natural language understanding, you can talk to the system like you would to a friend, like this. Hey Mercedes, your Mercedes will respond, how may I help you? And then you can give it a command like, find the nearest fuel station. Now in Zimbabwe, fuel station with fuel. The navigation system will then bring up a list of the nearest fuel stations that have fuel and ask you, no, I'm joking, the nearest fuel stations and ask you to select your preferred fueling station. As simple as that. You can also say, hey Mercedes, and your Mercedes will respond, how may I help you? And you can give it a command like, open the sunroof. It'll then reply, opening sunroof, and the sunroof will automatically open. It's like witchcraft. That's without you having to lift a finger off the steering wheel. How incredible is that? Stay tuned for more.
Z.
Let's get into the Formula One news, and the news is that Lewis Hamilton cruised to victory at the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa and then admitted it was so boring he would have sent himself to sleep. The season is turning into a procession towards the Britain's record-equaling 7th world title. Hamilton led from start to finish to take his 5th win in 7 races this season, moving him 47 points clear in the championship. Hamilton says he wants more of a fight in Formula One 2020 after his latest crushing victory.
Many years ago when I was at McLaren, and I was the driver that was always at the front and didn't have a teammate backing up, so you equally don't get the constructors points, but then can't play strategy on the cars that you're racing against. So they've got that, so he's kind of there on his own. And I mean, today it's really tires, you know, everyone's doing a one-stop. This one-stop whole thing really is boring. And then at the end of the day, we're just all managing out there, which is not this is not racing, you know. We're all managing. At the end, everyone's backing off so that the tires don't deflate, blow up, whatever. We have no idea what they're going to do. I was worried that it might do the same thing as Silverstone, so I backed off, but maybe it would have been fine. but it was too big a risk to take because I had the lead.
Taking a look at the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa, Barry, it promised something, because we all thought with the young, adventurous, risk-taking Max Verstappen in third place on the grid, we all thought that perhaps he would have it in him to push the Mercedes pair of Hamilton and Bottas ahead of him and make something of a fist for it. But it became very obvious in the opening laps at Spa that Red Bull wasn't up for it.
Absolutely, and Spa-Francorchamps traditionally is an overtaking course, overtaking track. So there should have been a bit more excitement in the race, but in truth, the car's not good enough. The Red Bull is some distance behind the Mercedes, is the best of a bad bunch, which is why Max was sitting in third position, but far ahead of the one in fourth, and then obviously some distance behind the Mercedes. So that disconnect, I think, is what we're going to have to live with until the end of the season, mainly because we're not going to any hot circuits. When the Mercedes has to deal with heat and that downforce of theirs, they have tire trouble, and that makes them have to consider what their race strategy is. As long as we don't have that, it's cooler tracks. I think it's going to be a procession until the end of the season.
Okay, Chris, let's call a spade and not a teaspoon. This season is a write-off for all teams, except for Mercedes. And in truth, this is a disaster, isn't it, for Formula One? Because this is hardly a spectacle, and increasingly more and more people are switching off their TVs.
Definitely. I think you could watch Sunday's race literally switching for a few seconds just to see what's going on and switching out, because it was, I think, after the first 15 or so laps, it was quite clear which direction the race was going in, and it's the direction that it's been going in since the beginning of the season. And for the other constructors, your Red Bull, Ferrari doesn't even have a sniff. They were sitting, I think at one point, one of their drivers was sitting in last position, and it's just, there's no competition. It's not as fun to watch. If Lewis Hamilton himself will come out and say it's not as fun when there's no actual competition for Mercedes, then Formula One is going to need to do something to up the ante and to make it a bit more competitive.
And of course, those rule changes are coming in a season's time. We hope that they'll be able, of course, to make Formula One even more competitive, because as it stands, it's a procession for Lewis Hamilton in the driver's standings, because he's leading the way, 157 points. In second place, his rival from Red Bull, that's Max Verstappen. He's got 110 points. So Lewis Hamilton, 47 points clear. Valtteri Bottas is in third, 107 points. Alexander Albon of Red Bull has got 48 points in fourth. Charles Leclerc, fifth for Ferrari with 45 points, the same number of points as Lando Norris of McLaren, who's, of course, sharing that fifth spot. The constructors' standings, Mercedes 264, more than a 100-point lead ahead of Red Bull, who are in second on 158. McLaren is third, Racing Point fourth, and Ferrari is way down in fifth. A poorer return than they would have expected. The next race is the Italian Grand Prix, and it's on Sunday.
We're talking about the Mercedes-Benz UX now. In addition to the intuitive interface, the MBUX helps you keep track of all of your settings in several ways. It allows you to keep all of your unique personal settings like seat position, side mirror settings, radio settings, paired smartphones, and so much more to your own profile. The MBUX allows you to program up to 7 user profiles, which makes it convenient for more drivers to have access to all of their preferred settings at once, quickly and easily.
The intuitive design of MBUX uses artificial intelligence that learns your usage habits by learning what you like to do on certain days of the week and even certain times of the day. MBUX can create shortcuts to make your journey easier. As you can see, MBUX offers seamless functionality for intuitive and super responsive performance. With MBUX, your Mercedes-Benz experience truly is the best or nothing. And if you still don't believe how amazing this technology is, please do pop down to our Zimoko showroom at Sam Levy's Village, Borrowdale, and one of our sales executives will demonstrate how amazing the all-new Mercedes-Benz GLE with MBUX technology really is.
The Formula One Report is proudly brought to you by Zimoko. the home of F1 brands Mercedes-Benz and Alfa Romeo in Zimbabwe. Zimoko, specialized service for special brands.
Hi, my name is Sean Williams, Zimbabwe cricket captain. You're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Z. Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
We take off in Yorkshire, where Joe Root hit his second straight T20 half-century for Yorkshire on the same day he was left out of England's T20 squad to face Australia. Root had struck 64 from 40 balls in Yorkshire's Vitality Blast win over Derbyshire, but that was not enough to earn him England's selection for the 3 T20s against Australia. We head over to New York, where 4th seed Naomi Osaka overcame a scare to beat fellow Japanese player Misaki Doi 6-2, 5-7, 6-2 in the US Open first round. Elsewhere, teenager Coco Gauff's hopes of another Grand Slam run were ended by 31st seed Anastasia Sevastova. On the men's side, world number 1 Novak Djokovic defeated unheralded Damir Dzumhur of Bosnia-Herzegovina 6-1, 6-4, 6-1 in just under 2 hours at an eerily quiet Arthur Ashe Stadium, while 5th seed Alexander Zverev was made to work hard as he progressed into round 2 following a 3-hour-long tussle with 2017 finalist Kevin Anderson. We'll touch down in Florida, where Chris Paul scored a team-high 28 points and carried the Oklahoma City Thunder to a 104-100 victory over the Houston Rockets, forcing a decisive Game 7 in the Western Conference first-round playoff series. Game 7 is scheduled for tomorrow night, with the winner advancing to face the LA Lakers in the conference semifinals. Elsewhere, Jimmy Butler hit 3 consecutive hoops down the stretch to cap a postseason career-high 40-point performance as the 5th-seeded Miami Heat stunned the top-seeded Milwaukee Bucks 115-104 in the opener of their Eastern Conference semifinal series.
Hi, I'm Warriors coach Zdravko Logarušić, and you are listening to ZiFM Sport.
Sports with a difference.
Z. The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport. The beating drum. The roaring fans. Take a ride on the wild side with the Africa Report on ZiFM Sport.
Oh, Africa! Football happening on the continent, except here in Zimbabwe. And the one that is intriguing and interesting us is the one that's happening south of the Limpopo. And today we take a look at the south side of the league table. That's a relegation battle in the ABSA Premiership, and AmaZulu coach Ayanda Dlamini says there is an air of confidence among the players that they will survive relegation after the crucial win over Black Leopards at the weekend. Usutu clinched a 1-0 victory against Leopards at the Malukas Masterpieces Moripe Stadium on Saturday, thanks to a winner from Bongi Ntuli, which lifted them up to 13th position in the standings before Baroka's win over Sundowns pushed them back down to 14th. The result puts Lamini's men 2 points clear of the relegation zone with 2 games left to play against Stellenbosch and Highlands Park. So it makes for very interesting reading down there, Alois, and in truth, it's a tough relegation battle, almost as intriguing as the battle for the championship between Sundowns and Kaizer Chiefs.
Yes, Benny, I think it's quite exciting. You know, it's unfortunate that we might be celebrating people fighting for their lives down there, but it's exciting for us fans. We're enjoying it. We're enjoying drama down there. And what better way to actually finish the season by having competition at the top and competition at the bottom. So we are enjoying, we're looking forward to it, but it doesn't really look bad when you look at my fans' perspective. We enjoy it as always when this happens. The thing about South African football is that clubs, they get a lifeline. They only relegate one team and the other second from bottom. You get a lifeline and you get into the playoffs, and the playoffs are as good as the cup finals. So we are in for a ride now. It's going to be over until at the end of the season. Still going to get into the playoffs as well. We saw Swallows gaining promotion automatically as well. Big team in South African football, they are back, and we are looking at the relegation zone to see who is going to be replaced by Moroka. So this is quite exciting.
And Alois, they're pointing out that the Dube Birds of Soweto are back in the big time. They're back in the Premier League, of course, gaining automatic promotion this past weekend. Now, let's give you the picture as it stands, Mike. Polokwane City sitting in 16th position, bottom of the log. They've got 25 points. In second from bottom, Black Leopards sitting on 26 points. And then AmaZulu is in 14th, as we said. They are 3 points ahead of the bottom side on 28 points. Equal on points with the Baroka, who are in 13th position, but with a superior goal difference. Those are the 4 teams that are battling it out to stay in the league. Of course, we know that the relegation permutation in South Africa is that one down automatically, that's the last club, and then the one that finishes in the penultimate position will go into a playoff with some of the teams coming out of the Glad Africa Championship, as it's called now, which is the national first division in South Africa. It makes for very interesting reading, doesn't it, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely, Barry. I wish you would have gone just a couple more places up the log standings, because you would have mentioned Chippa United in 12th place on 31 points, safe. And they need to write Norman Mapeza a check, because the job was done.
They do, Mike. They do.
By the time he left the club. Yeah, he did a great job with Chippa United. They will, of course, live to fight again in the ABSA Premiership. But Barry, the tragedy that could ensue this season is that we could see both teams playing out of Limpopo in Black Leopards and Polokwane City relegated. What am I talking about?
Yeah, that'd be
we
sad.
talked about that scenario where there is one team that will be relegated automatically. Right now, you've got to say that the money is on Polokwane City. They are bottom of the log standings, and they look like they will go down. So there might be no football in the Peter Mokaba Stadium. And then Black Leopards as well. They will then, if they occupy 15th place after the final match day, will get into the playoffs, where it's not a gimme against Ajax Cape Town to secure another season in the top flight. So that could be the real tragedy, Barry, for football in South Africa, is that Limpopo could have both teams relegated this season. But just taking a look at that scenario at the bottom of the standings there's still some very interesting fixtures. And no gimmies. I mean, Baroka themselves, they've got a bit of a buffer, but they've got some very tough fixtures. SuperSport United, who are trying to finish as high as they can on the log standings, and Kaizer Chiefs, who want to be crowned champions. So there is no guarantee that Baroka will get any points from their last remaining fixtures. So they too are actually in this equation. They too are in this conversation. But points in the hand right now, more valuable than any points that you would wish to have or points that you would possibly get, because Black Leopards, they got Wits, another side again, that will not be a guarantee to beat. And Mamelodi Sundowns, who are fighting for the title. And then Polokwane City, they play Mamelodi Sundowns in their next match, and then Wits. So,
is that why?
Yes, and Mike, if you look at the situation you were describing just now, about relegation playoffs, traditional, I think in the last about 10 years, it has not happened. Once has it happened that a team that coming from the Premier League has gone to the playoffs and they all lose to the first division teams that are coming playoffs. So it's not going to be easy for the that are going into the playoffs from the Premier League.
Not going to be easy at all. And Chris, Mike thinks that the Limpopo clubs, Peter Mokaba Stadium, won't have any football because Black Leopards and Polokwane City will be cut adrift. At least they've got a backdoor entry, because remember, they've got Chakuma that's going to take over the operations of Bidvest. They play out of Limpopo at Thohoyandou Stadium. So Limpopo might be saved, fingers crossed, if that goes on and through. And so, but just looking at the 4 that are battling for those spots, Chris, in your view and in your gut, would you agree with Mike?
I would agree with Mike, and I would agree for the simple fact that it's just interesting. These final matchups, if you take a look at them, it's the top sides that are gunning for the championship going up against the teams that are fighting for relegation, the majority of the matches that are remaining for those 4 teams. So I think it's like he said about the bird in hand. The points that you have is what's guaranteed at the moment. And these are teams that are continuing to fight. We talk about Kaizer Chiefs and Mamelodi Sundowns being there or thereabouts. But I think that going into these final match days, they know exactly what's at stake. And I'm hoping they've got some rabbits to pull out of their hats, and they'll be able to go full throttle and not threaten like they have been the past few match days.
Chris, let me stick with you. The issue of playing in empty stadiums, is this a benefit, or will it help or hinder the teams fighting in relegation? We've seen them pull out some performances. I mean, who would have thought Baroka would beat the mighty Mamelodi Sundowns?
I think definitely it's been helping your teams that are fighting relegation. If you just take a look at the fact that they're playing against teams that normally would have massive, very hostile fans coming to these stadiums, your Kaizer Chiefs, Mamelodi Sundowns, these are teams that have a very strong support base. And we've seen those matches where their fans will show up, especially these last few rounds. So I think it's been of benefit to them to be able to go into a match where there are no fans in the stadium. I think it's worked in the inverse for your top teams.
Well, to quote Ramadoda, if the league were to end today, Black Leopards and Polokwane City would be cut adrift. A bird in hand is worth two in the bush. If you learned nothing else on the show today, learn that.
The league that makes football oh so beautiful, where artistry and strokes of genius are the order of any day, where the game is played with a smile and the little master creates his magic.
It's Lionel Messi!
All the news from the Spanish La Liga on ZiFM Sport.
The goal the world wanted!
We promise to keep giving you regular updates on the Lionel Messi saga, and the latest news is that, according to sources, Barcelona believe that the only way that Messi can legally leave for free is if he commits to not playing football this upcoming season. Barca's interpretation of a much debated clause in Messi's deal is that he could quit the club but would have to forego his salary for a season and could not sign for a new club until the next European summer, when his existing terms are due to expire anyway. Now, football pundit Steve Nicol says in light of recent developments, there's a 0% chance Lionel Messi is going to stay at Barcelona.
I mean, it's really a bit of skullduggery. You know, the fact that he had that clause in his contract and the fact that they've now kind of stabbed him in the back saying, well, it's gone. With all the pandemic and him playing when the restart, and playing through the Champions League, then he absolutely feels as though he's been stabbed in the back. So there is absolutely zero chance that Lionel Messi goes back to Barcelona. And people are talking about, well, if the president goes and Koeman goes, well, that ain't happening anytime soon. So Lionel Messi, in my opinion, actually is doing the right thing.
Now, just to give, of course, a background on the situation, Messi is attempting to exercise a clause in his contract that he signed with Barcelona in 27 that allows him to leave for free at the end of each season. That is the situation, Barry, with Lionel Messi. He's claiming one thing, the club is claiming another thing, and now La Liga has stepped into this fight and they are backing the club.
Yeah, and you can understand why La Liga stepped in and they've said that they were backing the club because it's in their interest to keep the stature of player in their league. Let's go back a couple of steps, guys. And I support Messi on the basis that I think it's right. Because if we throw forward, Messi's contract, I think, was going to end at the end of next season. Now, that would end in about June, July. Now, let's say Corona happened in 2021 as opposed to 2020, and the season was extended. Barcelona would expect Messi of the entire season, even though it's an extended season. So why is it now, if they would have asked him to do that in that scenario, why is it that now it's not good for him that they're saying that no, the contract, that clause would have subsided because June passed? No, it was an extended season. And so as a result, at the end of this season, which just ended, he can exercise the clause. So for me, it's an open and shut case.
Open and shut case for Barry, Chris. And there's also, the thinking that why would Barcelona want to keep a player that looks increasingly like he wants to leave at that club? Is it of any benefit to have an unhappy player, even if it's Lionel Messi?
I think it is. And I think it's from the perspective, first of all, of how big a star Lionel Messi is. I think that's something that we can't ignore when it comes to La Liga, when it comes to eyes on the game, when it comes to being just an attraction on the football field. I think he still holds that. No matter how unhappy he is, he's still Lionel Messi. And they'd still want to keep him from that perspective, from the perspective of star power. But I think even as you're rebuilding, which they are going to be within the next 1 or 2 seasons, and possibly even further than that, you need some players who have the DNA of the club to still be a part of it. I think Lionel Messi could be a very important senior player for them. So I think that's one of the reasons why they want to keep him, is he's been there for such a long time. He's basically part of the furniture, and having that identity and being able to pass it on to the newer, younger, up-and-coming players, I think is something that's important for Barcelona if they're going to be returning to the Barcelona way of doing things, which I think Lionel Messi is very familiar with. It's how basically he's grown up with this club.
Alois, if that's the case, then why not try and convince Lionel Messi with the project and say, hey, this is what we are doing. We've already got Ronald Koeman to come in as manager. These are our transfer plans. We're planning to bring in players X, Y, Z to complement you. This is our strategy for this season. I know Chris has talked about rebuilding over 2 or 3 seasons. That only happens in England, doesn't happen in Spain. Clubs like Barcelona are expected to rebuild in one transfer window.
Yeah, Mike, to be honest, I don't know what's happening with Barcelona. You know, here is a guy that's been there all his life. The best you can actually do is an amicable separation. For me, I think, you know what, they can actually, like you are saying, that's an option to actually do it nice, to say, this is the project that we are planning. Let's do ABC together so we can end up with this together with him, because he has been there. That's an option, so that he can, not to code and say, I'm going to be here. I don't think that's actually the best way to do it when it comes to this situation. The other option is let him go. He has been there before. He has done everything that a bowler can do for a club. Let him go. And when you finish your career in 2 years, wherever you are going, we'll come back and we'll have your testimonial here, so that we can actually have a happy ending. I think that's what they owe Lionel Messi. Let him go and explore. Let him flow. Let him have the wings. Let him do what he has got to do, so that when he goes back, testimonial, and he can still get back into some system, into the Barca system. He can still come back. Even if he goes for 2 years, he can still come back, and they can give him something to do at Barcelona, and probably as an ambassador and everything. I think they're being unfair. They should let him go. They should let him be, and then they can actually have a very happy ending that is going to be legendary.
Alois, isn't that what the Bartomeu has been trying to do? He requested a FaceTime meeting, face-to-face meeting. If I say FaceTime, it means something totally different.
I used to say face, Barry. That is to say face. He's not trying to be a person.
Yeah. But he's trying to sell the project, to say, please stay. This is what we've got planned. But Messi is not having it. And I think that Barcelona
but not when you have thrown a court interdict first, not even telling him you are not going to go.
Alois, they'll be willing to let him go, but I think Barcelona's problem is not Messi going out. Barcelona's problem is Messi going out for free. That's where they have a problem. And if it were,
he could have gone for free three weeks ago.
He hasn't, because he knows it's a court battle.
I think it's also maybe, the important thing is that the law is the law. A contract is a contract. Mm-hmm. So I think that has to be followed, that particular stipulation. And I do agree with Barry when he says that Barcelona are trying to make sure that Lionel Messi does not leave for free. I think it will come down. I think what we are seeing is a posturing where the negotiations will end up eventually around, okay, no club is going to pay 700 million. Let's agree.
Something.
But I think if Barcelona get a figure of around 200 million, I think they'll do business with whoever comes in. And I've heard reports that Man City are willing to pay Messi 450 million. So if they're willing to pay Messi 450 million, they'll certainly be willing to pay Barcelona 200.
We'll end off with an update from the Premier League. Donny van de Beek has completed a medical in the Netherlands ahead of his £40 million move from Ajax to Manchester United. The deal is expected to be completed in the next few days while the player is on international duty with the Netherlands.
That's all we have time for, and we'll catch you tomorrow for a Wacky Wednesday edition of ZiFM Sport. Don't miss it. May God richly bless you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Menande, out.
And it's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
The biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world. world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.